Clearly, yes. Cheech and Chong.
We're going to Pee Wee Herman.
Regular Cheech and Chong or up in smoke? What are we talking here?
Once again, India. It's GDP.
1 minute.
2% in the fourth quarter.
What?
That's insane.
China not getting
Hey, you know, it's all right. I can't get anything done today.
as much as the international month.
It's a good thing I'm not hungover. Holy crap.
Yeah, you'd be dead,
That
dude.
sucks.
You would absolutely be
The
dead.
U.S. economy is still the biggest, but both India and China's growth rates are almost 3 times the U.S. rate. Consumer and business news, Joe McConnell, NBC News Radio.
In the wake of a disaster, what one thing can you send that will help people the most? A blanket, a tent, a sandbag, a doctor. Actually, if you send a monetary donation, you send all these things. Even a small donation can make a big impact.
Tulane's at 8
It can
tonight?
quickly
Does anybody know?
become exactly what people
Wait, what?
affected by
Yeah, it's
disasters
at 8
need
tonight
most.
on
In the
ESPN.
wake of a
All right, 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's on the biggie, the flagship.
to those in need. To donate,
Not the
visit
Ocho.
supporthurrelief.org.
Not the Ocho. That's totally the SS Network.
Not the Ocho.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Melvin Frazier moved up.
Dunc and Holder on a Thursday, March 1st. Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan, Clyde Verdane here with you in our NOLA.com Times-Picayune studios. Poor Dave DeCorbier, they're literally jackhammers outside of iHeart. When he decides to chime in, we hear the jackhammers and we can barely hear him. So please have pity on Dave's soul today.
Oh,
What a way to start March.
That was
Exactly.
that was a jackhammer. I thought that was Clyde. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh, am I gonna have to break you two up already?
No, I really don't understand what that shot was for. I've said and done nothing. And
Yeah.
if it was a jackhammer, it was going to be a jackhammer me outside with a jackhammer doing a statue of Richie Riley.
What is going on?
Richie Riley and the 2017-2018 Colonels team
Of
Southland Conference champions, baby.
Of all
Go
the
Colonels.
things that are going on right now in the New Orleans area sports world, and there's the jackhammer.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
That's literally Dave. He said if he had a hangover, he might just jump off the Crescent City connection.
I
today.
would. Absolutely.
Because it's not going to be working out today. But of all the things you bring up first in sports world, you bring up Nichols winning Southland, not the Pelicans.
20 years.
Stunning the Spurs in near miraculous fashion. Not the fact that Zach Streep seems like he's on the borderline of retirement. Not let Kenny Vaccaro talk to our own Josh Katzenstein, and Josh got the scoop that Kenny's going to be elsewhere, like we've mentioned plenty of times, now confirming from his own mouth that he anticipates being elsewhere. But the Colonels.
20 years. 20 years since the last time a Nichols team has either won or had a share of the conference title. 20 years. And in those 20 years, there have been, I want to say, 8 or 9 seasons of less than 10 wins, 6 seasons of less than 15 wins, and then there have been like maybe 2, including this one, 2 or 3 that you had 20.
All right. Well, celebration time's over for you, Clyde.
Oh, well, I knew you only gave me 5 minutes. That's why I wanted to do it early.
You got about a minute. Pelicans, big win. You could celebrate that, Jeff. I know you were watching. I know I was watching, and I was starting to chalk it up. Okay, at the Spurs, they were going to go down, but my goodness, furious comeback. And if you don't think the Pelicans are for real now, you probably need to start doubting yourself, because I think the Pelicans are for real. 7 in a row. And Jeff, I know you tweeted the statistic from ESPN. Do you have it handy? What was the Spurs and a lead of 15 plus or something like that?
I think the stat was when the Spurs have a 15-point lead in the second half. In the last, you got it?
I have it.
Go ahead.
The Spurs led by as many as 15 points tonight against the Pelicans. Over the last 10 seasons, San Antonio was 211-0. 211-0 when leading at home by 15 or more in the second half. Every other team had multiple such losses in that span.
Yeah, that's a remarkable stat. Now I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge getting hurt was a huge factor. He played 13 minutes. He's their second best player. They didn't have Kawhi Leonard, and Pop got thrown out of the game.
Pop's got tossed.
So they didn't have Pop, Aldridge, or Kawhi Leonard. I want to qualify that, but nevertheless, I think the biggest thing you take away from this team is just fighting. They're not giving up. Even if they would have lost, it would have still been positive that they go on the road and get down and still continue to grind their way back in it. I think that's what we take away from this, whether they win or lose the game. Obviously, it was great that they won, but this team has been down throughout this 7-game winning streak multiple times by double figures, and they keep grinding their way back. And I think it's remarkable what they've done. And just to think, I go back to this, I don't know if we talked about this on the show or during the break, that Brooklyn game against the Nets, they lost 5 of 6. They had a 33-point lead that they squandered, the largest in the history of the franchise. And Brooklyn had the ball with a 2-point lead in the last 20 or 30 seconds and blew a layup. And the Pels came down, tied it, went into double overtime. They won. They were on the precipice there, I think, of imploding. And they somehow kept it together, won that game, and it lit a spark, I think, and they haven't stopped since.
No, they haven't. And you just look at what they were able to do in the second half. 34-21 in that fourth quarter, they stormed back, and they started to. It was kind of throughout. 29-24, they lost the first quarter. Then they trimmed it back. They lost the second quarter, 31-27. Then they outgunned the Spurs 36-35 in the third, and then that fourth quarter was amazing. And I was almost thinking when Rajon Rondo's trying to throw in an inbound pass, and I know he threw it away against the Suns, I was saying, oh, man, something bad's going to probably happen here. He had to call a timeout, but then he got it into Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday misses the free throws, and then undoubtedly the Pelicans MVP, Anthony Davis, fights through and gets the rebound, fouled, and hits those 2 free throws. And that was huge. And when you need your superstar player to come up clutch, he came up clutch. Even though he didn't have 53 points, like he had 26, 9 of 19 from the field, but 8 of 8 from the free throw line, 15 boards. And Drew Holiday, though, even though he missed those free throws, clutched throughout that whole game as well.
Well, they got contributions from all kinds of guys. I mean, there was one point in the fourth quarter where AD wasn't carrying the load offensively. It was everybody on the team. And you know, we were out last night. I was out with Brett Martell after the UNO game, which, by the way, we need to talk about a little bit because I know Clyde was there. That was a great environment, great game.
That was probably the best atmosphere all year.
Oh, it was incredible.
Absolutely.
I mean, 2 teams going at it, but afterward we went up and caught the Pels game, and Brett Martell from the Associated Press and I were watching it, and some guy actually at the place we were at said the Pels are better without DeMarcus Cousins. That's the 3rd different person that I've heard say that. I don't know if that narrative is taking fire around here. I know our colleague that will be on Sports 1280 after us, Eric Asher, has been preaching that. I don't think that's fair. I don't think they're better. I think they're different. And I do think more players are involved in the offense now because they have to be. But the ball just seems to move freely, and these players are playing with such confidence. And again, I don't want to discount this, but I mean, San Antonio doesn't have any bigs after LaMarcus Aldridge. They have nobody. Their biggest guy was Rudy Gay. So AD just started dominating. That offensive rebound he got on the missed free throw is a good example. I mean, there was no one taller than 6'7" out there but him. So, you know, things are just falling their way to some degree too. They're not giving up, but they're also getting breaks. And I think when you do give that kind of effort, breaks start coming your way.
We talk about it all the time. Say when the Saints were rolling, they win 8 in a row. You get breaks when you're playing well, seemingly. And when you're not playing well, the breaks always seem to go against you. And you could refer back to Pelicans seasons of the past, and you could refer back to Saints seasons of the past couple of years. Breaks not going their way, and when they're just not that good of a team. But it doesn't matter to me who was on the court or who wasn't. This is a game, you look at the schedule, and you would expect a loss. The fact that they went out and won it, too bad, San Antonio. No one's going to pity you. You go out and you play, and people expect you to still win, and the Pelicans storm back and win. And here's the thing. Are they living dangerously? We've talked about it so many times. There's no doubt they're living dangerously. But I feel like the fact that if the Pelicans could actually get off to a hot start in games that they can sustain, the fact that they're able to come back, I feel like they were able to hold the lead if they ever had one. But not every NBA game is equal, and sometimes you get into these situations, and the fact that they keep coming back. This isn't the first or the second or the third or the fourth time we've seen these incredible comebacks. The fact that they keep coming back is such a testament to the way they've really come together after the DeMarcus Cousins injury. And, Jeff, the narrative you're talking about with Boogie, I don't think it's fair to say that they're better without him either, because they were starting to put it together when they had him, and that's when he got hurt, and it all fell off when you're trying to figure out the pieces afterwards.
Yeah, I think they're just a different team without him. I think that's pretty clear. And I think that in some ways, not having Cousins around, though, has inspired and lit a fire under Anthony Davis, and I think that's a good thing. I mean, AD by nature is kind of a laid-back guy, and I think when he has Cousins out there, Cousins is kind of the alpha male, I think. I feel like that's always been the case with AD.
He's a bigger personality.
Yeah, he kind of defers to Cousins to some degree, and he may disagree with me on that, but it seems that way to me. It was like that at Kentucky when Michael Kidd-Gilchrist was kind of the leader of that team, and AD was clearly the best player, but he wasn't necessarily the vocal leader of the team. I think Cousins has emerged in that way, but now that he's not around, Davis has had to be that guy, and he leads in his own way, but he's doing it on the court, and it's given confidence to everybody else on the team because they see they got the best player on the court, every guy.
Do you think it's because I know we talk a lot about that turn between like really you're being a rookie and then becoming a star, regardless of what league it is, where you're talking about football, baseball, like you have one of those years where you start to actually put everything together. Is this what maybe he needed to be able to really make that star, quote unquote, star turn to now he's leading not only by example, but he's leading by play, he's leading by voice? Because you're right. If you look at the box score, and if you look at the last few box scores, you know, we've been talking about, especially before Boogie went out, that the bench needed to get involved. Like the bench and everybody had to be bought into it. If you look at the way that this game went last night, you got 13 points from Mirotic off the bench, 10 points from Ian Clark, and 11 from Darius Miller, and that's not including getting 17 from Etuan Moore and 13 from Rajon Rondo. Everybody's starting to buy in. Everybody's starting to feel like they have an active role in the success and failure of this team going forward. And if that's something that they can use this year and then go into next year with a DeMarcus Cousins, that is star power plus an entire team that knows what they have to do night in and night out to win in this league and be a contender, as opposed to a team that kind of just rides the coattails of two guys and just hopes that they could hold on for dear life.
Well, answering to your point, your question about does Anthony Davis feel like he's a superstar? I think he felt like he was a superstar already, but when you bring in another superstar, you've got to figure out your way. And I feel like going forward, maybe in the next season, that Anthony Davis will be more assertive. And I think actually DeMarcus Cousins will push for Anthony Davis to be more assertive, given how much success they've had. I think we could see that going forward. But I think you're right, Claude. And as far as the bench production, you saw it last night. But we haven't seen that much recently. We've had to see either Anthony Davis really put the team entirely on his back, or it was a two-pronged Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis having to put the team on their back. The fact that even though they had to win in comeback fashion last night, they won it in a little bit of a different way, being able to use other pieces, Jeff. And the fact that they can win one way one night, they can win another way using a different sort of formula another night, I think that's extremely important in this stretch run coming up.
And the reaction that came across social media last night was pretty eye-opening to me. There were a lot of people into that game, and I think that might have been the kind of game, the kind of performance that got some people off the fence. Maybe they're going to be on board now. I mean, I looked at this 4-game road trip and said, man, if they can come back 2-2, that's good. And this was the most difficult assignment on the trip, I thought. Obviously, they got to play at the Clippers, who lost to the Rockets last night. They'll be motivated. But if they could come back 3-1, they're going to be in the mix in this thing down through the stretch.
Well, they've got the Mavericks first. That's on Sunday. So basically the good part is that they have a few days off between last night and then their next game. So they're at the Mavericks on Sunday.
And so they could come home for a couple of days.
Exactly. Come home for a couple of days before leaving to go to Dallas. It's a quick trip. So they're against Dallas. And again, they're 19-43. They're at the Clippers 32-28, and then at Sacramento before coming back home and playing the Wizards. You're right. They could actually make a serious run and come back home against a good team. Fans could be rocking. The Smoothie King Center could be on fire.
I would agree. Time to get on board, people. I've been way on board. Like, I've been on board for the last 5 games. Where have you people been? Come on.
Yeah, we haven't been on board since the season started in October.
Exactly. So, all right. Line up some guests. We're going to talk with Jim Derry around 10:37. We're going to, of course, he's covered our preps guru. He's going to be breaking down a brief moment on the prep basketball playoffs. We're going to have our outdoors reporter, Todd Masson, making his debut. He'll be on at 10:30. We'll get you up to date of what he's doing. 10:45, we're going to have Todd Graffinini on, talking all things Tulane, lots going on. 11 o'clock hour, we're going to be full of NFL stuff. What's up with Kenny Vaccaro? What's up with Zach Streep? Peter Schrager from the NFL Network has caused the Saints fandom to go in a massive panic. We're going to go into that as well. And your phone calls are welcome. 504-260-1280 is the number to get involved here on Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
The Walter Johnson Crawfish Bash is set for Saturday, March 31st at Southport Hall, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. More information about the Walter Johnson Crawfish Bash at WRNO.com.
Yeah, and then I forgot to mention that since AD scored 26 last night, he and Moses Malone are the only players to average 35 points and 10 rebounds for an entire month.
Right, yeah, I saw that.
So he's going to win Western Conference Player of the Month. We're just waiting for them to announce that.
While the world is watching, March 11th on TBS, TNT, and True TV, you'll be there.
I'm still in shock.
My heart is pounding.
This is unreal, man.
Keep listening for your next chance to win a trip to our iHeartRadio Music Awards.
I got to look at Marshman Masson's video.
For the love of music.
I know you love that stuff. I have to get you out of the water one time.
Fast, try lendup.com. Apply in minutes on your phone or computer,
and
you can have cash in your account fast. Lendup.com, the better payday loan. Lendup.com.
I love
availability in your state. Lendup is a licensed credit services organization.
Like
a direct lender in Ohio and Texas.
Tatum.
And we're back with Sage Kimsey, 4-time PRCA world champion bull rider and Wrangler-sponsored athlete. So, Sage, tell us, why do you rodeo?
Yeah, just talk to about anything.
Something that I've talked about ever since I was a little kid, putting on my Wrangler jeans.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Let him promote
about it, dreaming about it all the time.
I don't think there's any.
There's a special moment right before I get on a
Yeah,
boat.
let him promote his
everything
videos.
In the world's
I'll
pretty
chime in with
serendipitous,
something.
and the world just kind of slows down around.
We'll get out of there.
Yeah.
It's
you
perfect.
crawl over that chute, and then you know the best is yet to come.
Thank you, Sage. Question of the day, brought to you by Boot Barn. Save more with Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Hey, Esther, Liberty Mutual just saved me $782 on insurance.
Yeah, we got to let Derry talk because I don't know anything about it.
It's a lot of money, right?
All we got to say is, all right, we're going to be honest. We don't know
Liberty
anything about
Mutual saved me $782.
Visit us online.
He wears this like GoPro
I said,
on his
visit us
chest,
online to get a
so
quote,
you can
and you
see
can
like
save
it's like it's you
$782.
fighting the fish.
Liberty
That's
Mutual
cool.
Insurance.
Yeah.
Based on a recent countrywide new customer
Like
survey,
this.
coverage is underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance
He's
Company,
like,
Equal
it's
Housing
like
Insurance.
swamp people, man, when they got the camera.
It's like swamp people, man.
Alligator comes out the water.
Report says 1 in 14
They have it right there as soon as it comes out. All right, pick it up, pick it up.
My new Winter Olympic
The
sport,
CDC report
gator
says
hunting.
about
Gator hunting.
7% of women who gave birth in the U.S.
That's pretty big in
2016
Siberia.
Oh, yeah.
were
Yeah.
pregnant. The highest rates of pregnant smokers were in West Virginia, Kentucky, Montana, Vermont, and Missouri. The lowest rates were in California, Utah, Texas, Hawaii,
The
New
first
Jersey,
had some
and Nevada.
gorillas.
A
left
Minnesota
them biting
toddler
to get
with a
home.
severe water allergy is allergic even to her own tears. Brittany Angerman tells People that her 18-month-old daughter Ivy has a rare condition that makes her break out in hives whenever her skin comes in contact with water. She says when Ivy cries, her face swells up, and even a few raindrops can result in an outbreak. For now, her only recommended treatment is antihistamines, which the baby takes on her bath days. Health Update, Sarah Lee Kessler, NBC News.
15 seconds.
Okay. I'm gonna keep this segment probably five minutes, and then
Okay.
get out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cancer. Sign up today at relayforlife.org and help us attack cancer in our community.
She told me you'll never be alone. I can feel my face when I'm with you.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
You're doing something right if you can bump news of a former first-round pick bolting, probably. A longtime veteran stalwart on the Saints potentially retiring. When you could bump that out of the first segment, you're doing it right, and that's what the Pelicans are doing. And it's the NFL Combine. This would typically be the talk of the town, but the Pelicans just shows you win 7 in a row, you beat the Spurs, and it does get people talking.
Yeah, I think the town's talking. And look, we got some college basketball we'll be talking about today. There's a big game tonight at Fogelman Arena with Tulane, and last night Clyde and I were at UNO against Southeastern. That was a terrific game. So you're right, we got a lot of stuff. This is what our show's all about. We don't have to just focus on the Saints. There's plenty of other things to talk about, college baseball as well, and mock drafts are always popular.
Well, Peter Schrager's going to have people running in pitchforks and flames into Airline Drive if they take Lamar Jackson. That's a little tease. We'll talk about that in hour number 2. But you just look at the standings in the Western Conference right now, and you're now only a half game behind the Spurs. 36-26 the Spurs, 35-26 are the Pelicans. And you're only a game and a half behind the Timberwolves, and they did you a favor last night. They beat the Clippers. So that bumped the Clippers back out of the playoffs. Denver's at the 8th spot, 33-28. OKC 7 at 36-27. Portland and the Pelicans are both 35-26, but the Pelicans are ahead. And I know we've kind of hemmed and hawed about the home record. Pelicans aren't that great at home. I mean, they're above 500, but they're 17-12. But I would say you could look at it both ways. But the fact that they're 18-14 on the road, and we've seen them pick up significant wins on the road. They beat the Spurs on the road. Didn't they beat the Celtics on the road?
Yep, that was one of the overtime games.
Exactly. Well, they at least they didn't play overtime last night. They got a break out of overtime.
It was close to being overtime.
It was definitely close to being overtime. But the fact that they're winning on the road is a big thing. And if the Pelicans can finish anywhere between 3 and 6, they've got a shot at not being one and done in the playoffs.
No, they've got a shot at winning a series, which would only be the second time in the history of the franchise since it moved here in 2002.
Yeah.
2003?
No. This is actually the third time, because you had they did win a series. I believe they won a series when they were technically when they were Eastern Conference, and then it was a 2009
was that
10
a
season.
Jamal Mashburn team?
Yes, that was Jamal Mashburn, Baron Davis, that team. And then the team where, we were talking about it a couple days ago, when we haven't had a player since really Chris Paul, because that year that the Pelicans, or the Hornets then, were, I believe, the 2 seed or the 3 seed, and he was really in contention because he was at that point becoming the best guard.
They were the 2 seed.
Yes, and then they lost to the Spurs in the semis.
Yes, they were the 2 seed that year, and it was touch and go because people figured if the Pelicans would have the Hornets, whatever, the New Orleans basketball
basketball team,
if they would have jumped up to the 1 seed, people thought Chris Paul would have won the MVP.
Yes.
And I think Kobe won it.
He did win it.
That
yes,
year.
He did win it that year.
Is that the only year Kobe won an MVP?
I don't think so.
No, it's not the only. No, it's not. I think Kobe won 2 MVPs.
I guess what I was saying.
And then you're right. They didn't win. They were in the Eastern Conference first round. The first 2 years they were in the city, and then they did not win a playoff series until the 2007-2008 year.
They've never won a playoffs, one series except for 1 year.
Yes.
This would only be the second time.
Yeah, so you're right.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes,
I've written that multiple times, so I've been writing it wrong if you were correcting me. But it's amazing to me that this thing's turned around. Look, but they're still not out of the woods. I mean, they've got to keep winning. Everybody around them is winning. It's amazing.
They've had to win 7 in a row to get to this point. Let's remember that.
Keep the pedal to the metal.
Absolutely. The Portland Trailblazers, people thought maybe they might go in the tank. They've won 4 in a row, so they're in the mix as well. And yeah, they're basically percentage points with Pelicans, the Blazers, and the Thunder because they're both a half game behind the Spurs. So everybody's still right there. And now Denver falling off a little bit. They're 2 games behind everyone at 5, 6, and 7.
Yes.
So that's a good thing. And Kobe did only win one MVP. He's won 2 Finals MVPs. He's only won 1 regular season MVP. All right, let's take a break right here on the show, and when we get back, we will be a little NOLA.com Times-Picayune double barrel here. We'll talk with our outdoors guru, Todd Masson. If you're not seeing his videos and you're an outdoors enthusiast, you're missing out. He's doing a tremendous job. We'll get you up to date on what he's doing and what you could see on NOLA.com. And then we will talk with our own Jim Derry about high school basketball playoffs. So we're smashing them all into one segment. Todd Grappanini around 10:45, talking all things Tulane. Matt Forte, he helped me write a pretty good column I wrote yesterday. Small pat on the back. Pretty good column. Jeff also wrote a pretty good column about Melvin Frazier, so pretty good. So come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder. Yeah, I only remember that. I feel like I heard it passing like a week ago.
Your forecast.
And it was an argument about like
LeBron and him. Exactly.
This report is brought to you by FEMA.
For some reason,
which is normally how that comes up.
Happy Thursday from the Fox
It's
8
like
Weather
usually
Center.
like
I'm
talking about LeBron
meteorologist
immediately
Shelby
goes to Kobe.
Latino, and we'll see a warm day ahead of that cold front moving through this afternoon. Temperatures will get into the low to mid 80s ahead of that front. As it pushes through, we'll see a few showers around and then cooler air moving in. Overnight tonight, temperatures will drop into the 50s on both sides of the lake for a cool start to your Friday. From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. Have a great day.
When dangerous
then they lost to the Lakers, and then the Lakers went out and lost the very next
can bring
series.
you critical information from local sources you trust.
So that was
with
fun.
unique sound and vibration. Wireless emergency alerts keep you in the know wherever you are. Learn more at ready.gov/alerts.
Austin Seafood and Steakhouse, fresh Louisiana seafood to mouth-watering.
Oh, that was the
Italian
I think that was the year before.
All right, we got Todd.
Thanks, bud.
I almost called him Rob. I almost called him Rob.
Rob Masson. I bet he gets that a lot.
And then just get Derry on the horn. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that time. Okay.
Luncheons or rehearsal dinners. For reservations,
yeah. Okay.
Break. Y'all are feeling frisky and optimistic that nobody's going to talk really long, huh?
If you need a payday loan fast, try LendUp.com.
Frisky.
Apply and
That's us. This is a gamble. This is definitely a gamble here.
Yes, it is.
Maybe we can have them all 3 on at the same time.
Yeah, all right. Let's have a talk session. See how far we can go.
It's a round table discussion.
The first one to bring
What would
loses.
you like to see in the
Dude, we could totally have Todd slap Jim Derry in the face with a fish. That would be
I'm
huge.
in on that. I'm all on board for that.
I'm going to tell Jim this week comes on air. Jim, you should hear the things that these people are saying about you behind your back.
Whether you ride the wave or like to growl, we're talking your teams. Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Cypress trees like sausage on the smokehouse.
Welcome back to Dunc and Holder, making his debut appearance, and this is totally our fault. Actually, I'm going to blame Jeff on this one, Todd. He's always said, man, that Todd Masson, we can never have him on. And I said, come on, Jeff, let's get it done. Now we got our buddy Todd Masson, our outdoors guru here at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Hey, Todd, appreciate you jumping on the show, buddy. How are things hanging?
Man, everything's hanging great, Larry. You know that Jeff Duncan, that guy's a jerk, huh?
Yeah, he is.
Clyde, what is this, Clyde? Chiming in.
Todd comes on, and he's right out the chute, calling truth.
Marshman Masson. I thought we were friends.
I tell you, Jeff, I was just looking at a tweet you shared about some guy named Drew Brees, who apparently had some really bad showing at the NFL Combine. That guy's going to stink in the pros.
Yeah, that combine rank. By the way, Drew Brees measured 6 foot and ran a 4.8 340 in 2001.
He was faster than Tom Brady, at least. Tom Brady was probably slower than that. But hey, Todd, just wanted to get you on the show and look because you've got a little logo yourself. You're not even sharing it with anyone. Marshman Masson. And Todd, just let everyone know what you've been doing the past few months as you've kind of shifted over to video. And your videos are awesome and a must-watch. So just let everybody know what you've been up to.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Larry. Yeah, absolutely. Marshman Masson, it's a YouTube channel. What we decided to do is kind of transition from traditional media covering outdoors via print to covering outdoors in an area, let's face it, best fishing in the entire North American continent. So now we're covering outdoors via video, and I have the good fortune to be able to go out multiple times a week into the marshes of South Louisiana. My favorite place on planet Earth to be. I would rather be in the marshes than absolutely anywhere. And video my experiences and share them with viewers. And the channel has absolutely taken off. It's going gangbusters. I could not be happier with it. People seem to really like it. And that's good news for me because that means I get to get out in the marsh even more and share my experiences with viewers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely go to YouTube and subscribe to Marshman Masson. Lots of great videos already up there and plenty more to come in the future. I promise you that.
And your video today that's up, Marshman Masson video that's on the NOLA.com homepage, I've got it. I was kind of texting with you earlier. It brought to mind one of my favorite quotes of all time by Tim Floyd, former Hornets coach, former UNO coach, just recently retired, and he's a huge bass fisherman. And Tim's quote is, the 3 greatest feelings in the world are 1, the first kiss with a girl, 2, a road win, the bus ride after a road win, and 3, a topwater hit. And your video today is of topwater trophy trout. And tell us a little bit about that, where you caught these because those are big-time trout that you brought in.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, the only disagreement I would have with him is probably putting catching a topwater trout above your first kiss with a girl. But, yeah, it's I tell you, Jeff, and I mentioned this to you earlier, it used to be really, really good every February and March. In fact, most people don't even think of fishing topwaters this time of year. But for my buddies and me, that's our favorite time to target trophy trout on topwater baits. But for the past 2 or 3 years, it's really not been that good. But this year, it is excellent once again. I made a trip on Friday with Captain Charlie Thomason out of Hopedale. We were literally, I said 5 minutes from his launch. That might have been a slight exaggeration, but we were no more than 7 minutes from Charlie's lodge catching gorilla speckled trout on topwater baits. Now, the 3 keys that you have to look for if you intend to do this are grass, clear water, and mullet. Now, let's face it, in Louisiana, we don't have a whole lot of clear water. It's just got to kind of be clean. You don't want that gin clear bathtub-type water. You want a little tannic stain to it, but if you can find that nice, clean water, mullet and grass, you've got a really good chance of intercepting some big speckled trout that are literally as long as your arm. So I did that on Friday with Captain Charlie Thomas, and I went, did a little map study at home, looking for some areas closer to my house that perhaps should have some big topwater trout. Went out on Tuesday, I think, of this week, out of Wrigley's Marina and found some really, really nice fish as well. Not quite as big as the ones I caught with Charlie, but plenty enough to get me excited. Much, much closer to home. So it's really going on across the whole coast. I got about 30 texts or phone calls from people wanting to know exactly where I caught these fish. And I'm never going to reveal that, not because I want to keep something secret to myself, but simply because if I told everybody, you'd have 30 boats out there and nobody would catch anything. So the important thing is to remember the pattern. What you want to do, I mean, it's going to take a little time. Get out there and look. Use your eyes. Go find that pretty water. Go find that grass. Go find those mullet. And when you do, make big, long drifts with your topwater baits, and the chances are pretty good you're going to run across some of the biggest trout of your life.
All right, Todd, real quick, where can everybody follow everything you're doing, whether NOLA.com, YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff?
Right, yeah, Larry. I post everything I do to NOLA.com/outdoors, but an easier thing would be just go to YouTube, do a search, put in Marshman Masson. When you get that, just subscribe to the channel, and when you do that, every time I post a new video, you'll get an email telling you that a new video has been posted, and you'll get to watch it really quickly. And that's good because a lot of times we do a lot of giveaways in the videos, and the first one to respond with the correct answer gets a prize pack. So you definitely want to be on the front end when we post new videos.
That's awesome.
Awesome, Todd. Hey, bud, appreciate it. We're going to make this more regular. You come on, you give us an update of what's going on. Hey, Todd, appreciate the time. And I promise you won't be a stranger anymore.
Thanks, Todd.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Talk to y'all soon.
All right, Todd. Appreciate it. All right, let's switch gears. Let's head over, talk a little prep basketball here with Jim Derry on the line. Hey, Jim, what's up with you, my friend? I already hear you in the background.
Wait, so we really run these interviews together? Wow, that's crazy.
Yes, Clyde, that's how you do it.
That is crazy. I am courtside here, and you know it's important because I'm sitting next to Andrew Lopez, who's wearing his traditional Argyle vest that he saves for
such a loser.
Big basketball games.
Damn.
Clyde, Clyde just rips everyone. We need to put Clyde in the corner here.
I am in the corner already.
No, way in the corner here in a couple minutes. But no, Jim, just lay out what's going on. Big weekend this weekend for girls prep basketball. Next weekend is a big weekend for boys prep basketball, right?
Yeah, it's 2 weeks in a row on the road. That's always fun. But, girls basketball championships here, first year here in Alexandria at the Repeat Spanish Coliseum. And it's been, I've been pleasantly surprised. They've done a lot of work on this place, and it looks very nice. The lighting's fantastic, and we've had some good basketball. So the tournament continues, and our NOLA teams, we don't have as many of them as we normally have, but the ones that we do have been winning. So it's been a fun week so far.
Yeah, tell us about the prospects of the local teams on who's got the strongest chance for state titles, both girls and boys.
Well, of all of them, I think the team that has the best chance for a championship is the team that's about to play here in about 45 minutes or an hour, and that is John Curtis, and they're the top seed in Division I. They'll be facing Evangel. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 30-point game, and following that game is Dominican and McKinley. So everyone assumed that it's going to be Curtis and McKinley in the championship game. I would be shocked if that's not what it is, and would be very surprised if the Patriots don't win a state championship this season. Repeat as Division I champions here with Coach Barbara Farris. They're just loaded, and they've got a stud sophomore in Jakelia Jordan, who, as a freshman, was one of the all-tournament team members last year as a surefire all-metro player. So Curtis has the best chance to win a state championship, and we have an all-NOLA final in Division III, which is quite a surprise. Yesterday, St. Catherine Drexel, formerly known as Xavier Prep, came in and defeated St. Thomas Aquinas, who was probably the favorite to win Division III after their friends from St. Mary's defeated Northlake last week, the top seed. So it's going to be an 8 seed and a 6 seed in all-NOLA final in Division III on Saturday at noon, and we're looking forward to that as well.
Jim, as far as the boys next week, what are we looking at? Where do we stand right now?
Well, the boys are about to enter the quarterfinals. They will have the quarterfinal round beginning tomorrow. I keep forgetting what day I'm on, but today's Thursday, so they're playing tomorrow. And all over we have, again, the boys. We probably won't be as represented as we normally are on the boys' side of things, but we have some interesting teams to look out for, including defending champ Landry Walker in Class 5A, who, even though they're the 3 seed, you almost have to consider them the favored when they get into the tournament. So, we'll be watching for Landry Walker. St. Paul's the 2 seed in Division I. They were upset at home last year as a 3 seed by Brother Martin in the quarterfinal round. They're going to play them tomorrow night. Again, this time the 2 seed St. Paul's against the 10 seed Brother Martin. So St. Paul's looking for their first trip to the tournament. It'll be interesting to see if they can make it here. And they have 3 very good seniors and a very experienced team. Some kids that have been starting for 3, one of them for 4 years now, and so they're looking to make a little run here as well. So it's good. Next week in Lake Charles is going to be interesting, even though we don't have as many teams. I think it'll be a similar thing. I think that the teams from NOLA that do make it have good chances to win, and there is one in particular game that I'm interested in, and that's tomorrow. McDonough 35 is an 18 seed. Will actually be playing home in the quarterfinals because they're playing against 23 seed. My mind's drawing a blank. Got so many teams on my mind, but I know they're playing a 23 seed at home. So McDonough 35 has an excellent chance. They defeated the 2 seed Bossier on Tuesday night to get to the quarterfinals. So good NOLA representation, not as much as we like, but it's plenty enough to follow for sure.
All right, Jim, where can we follow everything that's going on with you the next couple of weeks?
All over NOLA.com, NOLA.com/Preble, and I'll also be doing my live updates either on NOLA.com or both NOLA.com, and my Twitter page at Jim Derry Jr. I will be here for every local game, girls or boys, until a week from Saturday.
All right. Hey, that's Jim Derry, Preps Guru here at NOLA.com and the Times Picayune. Hey, JD, we'll catch up with you next week to get a little more in-depth on the boys once we know the matchup. So thanks, Jim. Appreciate it,
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, JD.
All right. Good NOLA.com Times Picayune sponsored segment. Oh, yes. Exactly.
That's what we're here for, baby.
Jeff's fired up, and Clyde's ripping people.
Sponsored by no one.
I dare him to mess with Todd, though. That'll be funny.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
We found your limit. All right, good.
There you go. All right. Let's take a break right here on the show. And another Todd Grappanini's going to jump on the show, get his thoughts on the career of Matt Forte, get his thoughts on the game tonight at Fogelman with Cincinnati, a potential 2-seed going to an NCAA tournament. That game's going to be on ESPN, but of course you can listen to Todd right here on Sports 1280, and we'll talk with him next here, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app, Duncan Holder.
Johnson Crawfish Bash is set for Saturday, March 31st at Southport Hall, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. More information about the Walter Johnson Crawfish
Anything like that, what's the latest on
just 5 minutes.
Will there be little ears of
people will be like, oh, cool.
Right, yeah, I agree. Plus, he's versatile enough to even chime in on something else, too. So we needed to.
Yeah, clearly, we saw your tweet about Drew Brees, so he's clearly on it.
No, I won't need to smash him in.
Talking about your award-winning
Right.
Hey guys, look, I got a bunch of Pelicans. Tulane baseball tickets versus Cal State Fullerton for this weekend. So when we come back, we can So,
let's give them away.
And people can choose because we got all 3 games.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure where they're at. It's section 201. I don't know where section 201 is. I haven't looked yet.
They're always good.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just chime in and say, hey, if you want them, give a call, and they'll just, whoever calls in, get them.
Yeah, they can pick the day, yeah.
Cool. Okay, good deal.
It's dealer's choice.
I like it.
And iHeartRadio is all your favorite stations. Thousands of the best radio stations
Clyde,
from
what were you
across the country.
doing at the game
Plus,
last night?
iHeartRadio is free. Download
Were you
the
working
app
the game?
today. All
Yeah,
your
I was
favorite
doing. I was
music,
working
all
the
your favorite
table
stations,
clothes.
all free.
How much do you do of that? Decent bit?
This tax season, AutoZone has everything your car needs.
Yeah.
Like the free
It's gonna help
fix
me
finder
for
tool.
some.
When your check engine light comes on,
couple of
get it
trips I
checked
wanted
out at
to make this summer.
AutoZone.
Yeah, you
Whether
used
it's
to pay for
small
trips.
or serious, you can troubleshoot
I was
the
giving
real
Jay
problem
Romy
free of
shit
charge.
because I think he
So
works
you can get it fixed right
scoreboard.
there.
Yeah, he does.
And
Jeff,
power through the
crap.
dark this
He
winter
was like,
by upgrading
so
to
right before halftime.
Yeah, not that other word.
Right before halftime, there
Watch.
was like a out of bounds play that went like ball went out of bounds with 0.2 seconds left. I was like, a little slow on the trigger there, Jay. He's like,
I'm Tony Golden.
That's so savage.
He goes, if I were really cheating, I would let it run out. I wouldn't have stopped. I go, no, you were savvy enough to know that they can't get a shot off with 0.2 seconds left, so you actually tip it. Yeah, so it's like perfect.
A lot of those guys don't do a lot of that kind of stuff. Like some of the guys that do, like the guy that does the book, he also does Pelicans. He does a few other things. And like a lot of those guys.
Yeah, they all do. They're all that crazy.
Yeah. It's
I love
crazy.
those guys. They're like really committed to sports in New Orleans.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you got to have those people.
Yeah, you do.
Put on
the number of
games
events, yeah.
All those guys do it, and it's like,
when pressed further, Mel B
didn't
joked
have
that
those guys,
she'd better leave
couldn't-
the set.
Yeah,
Couldn't
like,
have
I mean,
Right.
talking like things like the book, shot clock, scoreboard, things like that. Like people don't even know. Like Loyola hosts like a division. They host like a tournament in the city, a basketball tournament in the city, with like a bunch of Division I teams that no one knew about.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm like, they were doing that too. Right on Lafayette when they
1 minute.
come here for
Last year,
Oh yeah.
the dog
Then
clones were
I'll
making
see you
themselves
maybe
begin from
depending
the
on how far
summit
they
in
go
south of
next week.
Samantha,
I might ride on
to run
Nichols.
from
I gotta
$25,000
figure
to
out.
$100,000.
I'm thinking about.
I might call Ricky
Dogs, Miss
Broussard
Scarlett
and
and
get
Miss
him to talk
Violet
about.
have
He was the
different
one the last time they went, right?
Yeah, he was
Alex
last
Baldwin
one.
getting
He might
his
be
own
good
talk
on
show,
that.
ABC
Yeah, he was at the game
announced
on.
in
He was at the
his
Nichols
series
game
called
on
Sundays with
Saturday.
Alec Baldwin, which will be based
When I
on
went against
Choose
UNO,
the Thing
and then I mean he's
podcast.
at most every
Are
game.
did they win it or are they
Guests
co-champions?
talking
Right?
No, they
one-on-one
won
with
it.
Baldwin about
No,
the
they were the
subject
best team.
matter topic.
Yeah.
took the picture of the trophy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Actor Adam Scott will be returning for the
so they
second
have a
season
share of
Big
it, but
Little Lies.
That's what I thought.
they have a share of it now, but they can win it outright on Saturday against Southeastern. But if Southeastern would have lost, yeah, it'd been done and dusted.
But Southeastern didn't lose.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a great game on Saturday.
It's going to be a massive game.
Yeah, and
these
Hammond-
teams last night were
Hammond
playing so hard. I'm sitting down there going, these guys are playing 50 times harder than the Pelicans play. They were.
This is Duncan Holder.
Martell's
on
like,
Sports
pros know how to
1280.
conserve energy.
Welcome back, Dunc and Holder. Switching gears over to Tulane. Lots to talk about. And Jeff and I have all of a sudden become Tulane machines. We both writing columns over the last, say, 12 or 15 hours about Tulane standouts. And who better to have on than Mr. Tulane standout, Todd Graffinini, jumping on the show. What's up, Todd?
Good morning, gentlemen. Busy time of the year. It's what it's all about right now. I got something going on every night of the week, so this is fun stuff right now.
Let me rewind real quick. Baseball, coming off of the sweep at Ole Miss, last 2 games, beat a pretty good Lamar team 2 games in a row. Just your overall thoughts on being able to pick up those 2 wins, heading into a big weekend. And, oh, by the way, plug here, we've got Cal State Fullerton tickets for games all weekend long. So if you want to get in, give us a call, 504-260-1280. Dave DeCurbier has them. You could pick your day of which day you want to go. Huge series for the Green Wave. But back to being able to take 2 of Lamar. What did you see being able to bounce back there, Todd?
Just really, really solid baseball, Larry. It's about as simply as I can put it. Very impressive. And the best part about it to me was they did not take that Ole Miss series, which they really could have won the Friday and the first game and the last game. Wasn't able to do it. Ole Miss was just the better team in the series, and there wasn't a hangover. They put it behind them, and they got away from things on Monday, and they came back Tuesday, and their pitching gave up 1 hit to Lamar and 13 hits, which was a season high, and scored 7 runs, played errorless defense, and then yesterday more of the same. Outstanding pitching, got it done out of the bullpen, timely hitting, no errors again. It really couldn't have gone better in those 2 games. And look, 5-game weeks are tough because you got to manage your pitching correctly going into the weekend. And I thought Travis Hewitt and Ty Dickinson, the pitching coach, managed this thing very well. A lot of guys got work, but nobody was taxed. And they're about as fresh as they can be going into Fullerton coming in this weekend. So it could not have gone any better Tuesday and Wednesday.
Todd, tonight Cincinnati comes into Fogelman, Devlin Fieldhouse, number 10 team in the country. They obviously are the favorites now to win the American Conference Athletic Conference Championship. Tell me about this game tonight. It's a huge matchup for Mike Dunleavy's team and a chance, I think, to get a national platform, not only for Melvin Frazier, who I wrote about today, but also just about the entire program, the progress the program has made. It's nationally televised on ESPN. Should be a great environment for basketball at the Fieldhouse.
Yeah, we haven't been on the big network at home in a long time. It's not the Ocho, it's not news, it's not you, it's the big one. So we've been hyping this game up for quite some time, and I know there's going to be easily between 1,500 and 2,000 students tonight. So if you want to get in the building, I would advise you to call the ticket office immediately, because more than likely the game's going to sell out, if not before the game, a walk-up crowd. And you're right, there's no better place to watch a basketball game when that place is completely full, and it's going to be that way tonight. Cincinnati, it's very curious, Jeff, because we've gone through the entire American Conference schedule, and it's the second to last game of the year, and we've not played Cincinnati. This is the last team that we have not played this year, if you can believe it. So, I've gotten to watch them, obviously, all year long, and they're just so good. They're so physical, so big underneath. They've got tremendous guard play as well, and they're on top of this league for a reason. They went, 2 months without losing a game in the conference, and everybody's looking forward to the showdown on Sunday against Wichita State, which more than likely is going to be the game that's going to crown a champion in this league. But I got to believe Tulane's going to have something to say about it. And I talked about this last week when I talked with you guys. Tulane's proven that they can play with anybody in the league. Now, we have not seen Cincinnati yet, so that remains to be seen. But, if Tulane is on top of their game, they can play with anybody. It's just how are they going to respond? And this is what you're a little concerned with, and I know it's kind of crazy to talk about, but when the building is like what it's going to be tonight, I've seen it so many times in the past, fellas, that the team puts a little bit too much pressure on themselves, and they try to do things that they're not capable of doing, and they come out a little tight. They've got to make the building work for them tonight instead of work against them. And I think the first 5-10 minutes of the ball game is going to be really the key to the game. Look, Cincinnati's going to be good. They're going to come out firing on all cylinders. Tulane just got to hang with them, stay in the game, get it to halftime within reason. Hopefully, it's very close, and then you go from there. What you can't have happen tonight is Tulane go in a cold spell right out of the gate, get down by 15, 20 points, and then it's just an uphill climb the entire time. That's what you got to guard against in the situation you're going to be in tonight.
Todd Grappanini, voice of the Tulane Green Wave, joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. And, of course, Todd, give the lowdown of when and how you could listen to you tonight on the call.
7:30 pregame, 8 o'clock tip. It's a late game, so you got plenty of time to do what you need to do. Get settled in. Again, sync us up on the radio and TV if you want to. But again, I highly recommend any basketball fan, not just a college basketball fan, a basketball fan, to go to Ferret Street tonight and watch this game live because, again, you've got an outstanding team in Cincinnati, highest-ranked team that's come into the building since Derrick Rose and Memphis came in 08 when they were ranked number 1. So a little history being made. It's been almost 10 years since a team ranked this high has come in. So, again, if you're a basketball fan, I advise you to get in the building tonight. 7:30 pregame, 8 o'clock tip right here on Sports 1280.
And a great matchup graph with Jacob Evans, who's a projected first-round draft pick for Cincinnati from Baton Rouge, and potentially going against Melvin Frazier, who also we know is a budding NBA prospect himself. So if you just want to see great talent also, you got two guys that might be playing in the NBA in the future, one way or the other.
Yeah, no, you got those two guys. You got Gary Clark, who is up for Conference Player of the Year for Cincinnati, who has had an unbelievable career. And let's not forget Cameron Reynolds for the Tulane Green Wave, who's playing his last home game tonight, who now, with the game on Saturday at UCF, became the all-time leader in games played in a Tulane uniform at 132. It's a very short senior class tonight, Jeff. It's Cameron Reynolds. That's it. So he's playing his last game, and he deserves it because he's been through the ringer. I mean, he's been through coaches and injuries and what have you, and I think he really deserves a big time send off tonight against a quality opponent.
Todd, before we let you run, I reached out to you because I knew you had called games with Matt Forte. He announced his retirement yesterday, and in my eyes, one of the best Tulane football players ever, and in my eyes, one of the best Tulane football players to ever play in the NFL. Just your thoughts on his career and just what you remember from seeing him up close.
It was awesome. Just because he had a great career. He got that second contract. He made his money. He earned his money, and he got out relatively healthy. I know he had some injuries along the way, but again, he's relatively healthy. He's still very young, and he got out of the game. And he's just been such a professional and had such class since he left Tulane. But that senior year, and I talked about it on Twitter. That was the first year I called Tulane games full time as the play-by-play announcer, and to have a running back like him rush for 21-27, which is just mind-boggling if you think about it. In a 12-game schedule, 5 200-yard rushing games, 2 300-yard rushing games, countless long runs, 50, 60, 70 yards. I mean, it was a dream for me. What nobody remembers is we won 4 games that year. We should have been a bowl team. We lost in a Hail Mary, which is probably the darkest day in my Tulane career. We lost in a Hail Mary against Army up in West Point that year. And then we got, well, for lack of a better word, hosed against Memphis in our homecoming game by the referees, but I won't get into that. That was a bowl team, but that was the most fun 4-win team I've ever called. I mean, and I've seen a bunch of them.
All right, 30 seconds, guys.
Playing as a play-by-play announcer or not, but to watch Matt Forte rush for 21-27, I mean, well, you're never going to see that. I mean, and it's only happened a handful of times. So I was very, very fortunate to be a part of that year.
20 seconds.
Forte get himself in the league, and I talked about it in your column, Larry.
All right, Todd, we got to run, buddy. We're up against it, so Todd Graffinini.
10 seconds.
Appreciate the time, as always, and
Thanks,
check out
Graf.
my column at NOLA.com. So hour number 1 is up. Hour number 2 is on the way. Come on back. Dunc and Holder. Hear the music.
Have you gotten a picture? You
can't help it. Know better.
You can't help it.
John is asking some
fired
of
up.
his delivery providers.
Man.
He touched on football, baseball,
Always,
basketball.
yeah.
He's like, he loved it.
Always leave the time to bring the levity.
Those who get
One of the darkest days. It was one of the darkest days. Okay.
Packages on the back porch.
There's no way.
If that's the darkest day, dude, I don't even want to know, bro.
In the notice of delivery. The iPhone gets top billing when it comes to smartphone security. Security Lab says Apple took the shortest amount of time to issue the security update. The updates were independent of carriers, and Apple supports devices for 5 years. Essential Phone and Google phones were ranked in the middle. Samsung was a long way down the rankings. Google is out with a 360-degree video that shows how their Waymo self-driving cars work. The video was shot on a drive around Phoenix, where Google's been testing the autonomous vehicles. The video shows how cars use radar, cameras, and computer vision to see the world around them. Tech Report, Larry Olson, NBC News Radio.
WODT, WNOE FM HD2 New Orleans. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app. Search Sports 1280. Fox Sports trending now.
Well, the Combine getting into full swing. Quarterbacks have arrived. Measurements being taken today. And in case you're into that kind of thing, Wyoming's Josh Allen has the biggest hands at 10 and 1/8 inches. Oklahoma's Baker Mayfield, the Heisman winner, among the smallest at 9 1/4 inches. Dolphins coach Adam Gase says Ryan Tannehill will be their starting quarterback in 2018. There was some speculation Miami might take a QB with the 11th overall pick after Tannehill missed all of this past season rehabbing from a knee injury. Buccaneers coach Dirk Cutter says running back is the position that's a priority of the team, not necessarily QB. After releasing Doug Martin last week, Tampa Bay has just 2 experienced backs on the roster.
He gets a hall pass.
Rodgers and Peyton Barber. And we want to send our best wishes out to Bills Hall of Fame quarterback
coming to the area.
Resume treatment after learning his
By the way, we
cancer
tried to
has
go to
returned.
your area.
I'm Deb Carson.
After the game, so we could catch the end of the Pell.
Yeah.
Everything closed at 9.
Yeah, dude.
9.
Yeah, bro.
I would never live like that. Never.
The only thing I would have thought would have been open spices dipped in walnut and cheese sauce.
We walked in.
Velvet Cactus was closed?
We walked in. Well, that's the one place that was open. We walked in Mondo at 9:20.
Oh, Mondo's?
9:20 and they wouldn't serve us.
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
Exclaims the Hollywood Reporter.
What are we in
Parlays,
Mayberry?
yeah. Well, that area. No, dude. Mayberry is on the other side of Canal. That's Mayberry. Because apparently they're circulating a mass pamphlet that says that apparently some developer is looking to build some kind of quote-unquote mini mall on a very small lot. All it's going to do is bring more parking, possibly restaurants and alcohol. We don't want that on this side of Harrison. Keep that on the other side of Harrison. Blah blah blah. So it's all a shit show. So like the side of Harrison, on my side of Canal,
Save more with Liberty Mutual
It's got to be
Insurance.
very
Hey, Esther, Liberty Mutual just saved me $782 on insurance.
On the other side, Liberty did what?
I know. It's a lot of money, right?
Yeah,
What'd you say? Liberty Mutual saved me $782.
Visit us online to get a quote. What? I said, visit us online to get a quote, and you can save $782. Liberty Mutual Insurance. Based on a recent countrywide new customer survey, coverage is underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company, Equal Housing Insurer.
Are you still talking?
It's important to buckle up your kids.
I know.
Sometimes car seats can be complicated.
I know.
And if your child's in the wrong seat and you get into a crash,
I know.
it could lead to a serious injury.
I know.
So you're 100% sure you have the right car seat for your child's age and size?
I don't know.
Don't think you know. Know you know. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Make sure you have the right car seat. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Mr. Red's Oyster Bar and Fish.
So he meets with Florio, he won't be with us.
Yeah, clearly.
Actually.
Serving the freshest Louisiana seafood. Come get oysters raw on the half shell, charbroiled, and more for our cold or hot appetite. The catch of the day are our barbecue shrimp. Enjoy a great pasta dish, crawfish etouffee, or shrimp and grits. But save room for dessert. Dine in our beautifully renovated dining rooms, on the patio, or belly up to the bar to watch the home team. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House, now open in the French Quarter 7 days a week.
I know they've always liked it.
Not waiting
Yeah.
for government action, more and more schools are
need a veteran back
fortifying.
there.
They've been buying what's
I
called
agree.
intruder-resistant
With Marcus
glass
Williams,
and security
someone,
doors.
Von
A company
Bell,
called School Guard
and
Glass
Raphael
tells
probably
USA Today it started selling its products to a few schools after the Sandy Hook massacre in 2012. It was up to 50 schools in 2014, and last year, almost 400. Still a small percentage of the thousands of schools nationwide, but it seems to be a trend. It's not so much bulletproof
what
glass, which is heavy and can be too expensive for most school districts, but difficult to break glass, and also special door jams that can at least delay an intruder's entrance and allow time for police to arrive. Negotiations over Brexit are getting more complicated. The European Union and the UK are at odds over Brussels' proposal for a so-called common regulatory area between Northern Ireland.
A minute and a half.
Jack Herrick reports.
It's time to pick up the pace, says Michel Barnier, the EU's chief Brexit negotiator.
Nothing in here will be a surprise for those who have followed the negotiations.
Both sides insist there should be no hard border. The EU's suggestion is a common trade area on the island of Ireland. But UK leader Theresa May has already slammed that for the division it would create between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK, saying it's something no Prime Minister could agree to. Brexit negotiations will resume in Brussels next week, when the British government will try to change the details of the EU's text.
Really?
Jack Parrott.
God, I thought
And the world's fastest growing economy is once again India. Its GDP grew 7.2% in the fourth quarter, 3/10 more than expectations, and it beat China's growth rate by 4/10. China knocked India out of the top spot 2 years ago, but China has been slowing and India growing again. Much
All right, 30 seconds.
Very fun predicted 2 years ago. It just didn't happen at the predicted time and rate. The U.S. economy is still the biggest, but both India and China's growth rates are almost 3 times the U.S. rate.
I know, I
Consumer and business news,
I'm not
Joe
gonna write
McConnell,
about it.
NBC News Radio.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace. Learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Here we go.
Dunc and Holder, hour number 2 on a Thursday, March 1st. Before we get started, jumping into plenty of Saints conversation, plenty to talk about. Of course, they're up in droves up in Indianapolis at the NFL Scouting Combine. So we'll talk about that. But just want to, real quick, because I had to shoehorn it in when Todd was on there. If you want to go to Tulane, Cal State Fullerton baseball series, the weekend's supposed to be awesome. The baseball is going to be great. Cal State Fullerton is always a national power. And another non-layup for the Tulane baseball team. If you want tickets, we've got them here. Give us a call. 504-260-1280 is the number. And you pick which day. Dave's got a handful of tickets.
I've already given away 2 pairs of the Saturday game, so if you want a Saturday game, better call quick.
All right, so we got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the Saturday tickets are limited. So as we can actually hear Dave, the jackhammers, maybe they took a lunch break. Thankfully for Dave's brain,
thank God.
He can concentrate over at iHeart. But yeah, if you want to get in that, like I said, 504-260-1280. Give Dave a call. You want them, and the tickets are yours. But plenty of Saints news. And basically dedicating this hour to Saints / NFL Combine / mock draft panic by one person, and all hell's breaking loose. But let's start off with the major news of yesterday. Came out right after we got off the air as far as Zach Strief. NFL Network reporting that he looks like he's on his road to retirement. And we don't know if that's official. We're just going to go with it as if Zach Strief does retire. I know it's something that you've talked with Zach about, that I've talked with Zach about. He's been open about where he is in his career. And it's remarkable that I went on with Chris Gordy yesterday because, of course, the news came on afterwards, so I jumped on his show. And it's remarkable that of the 2006 draft class, he's the last one that would be on the team. Pretty remarkable.
Yeah, well, he and Jari Evans are still playing, and Jari played, of course, this past year in Green Bay, he's probably facing a very similar decision as Zach. And Zach, even before this past season, talked to us about, is he going to play any longer after this season? And I think he was conflicted by the way the season played out. Of course, he was injured in the opener against the Vikings, hurt his knee. And I'm sure he was conflicted of, this is how my career is going to end, and the team is good again. I know he wants to contribute to that and be on a winning team. It's always more fun when you're winning. But he knows also that the starting right tackle job is Ryan Ramczyk's. And he said back then that I don't want to be that guy, that veteran holding on as a backup, just kind of the swing tackle guy. He's got bigger aspirations in his post-playing career that he's ready to get on to. He's got this business venture that he started with some family members and friends at Port Orleans Brewery. He's got other business interests, and he's a new father for the first time with his son. So all these things, I think, are what he is weighing right now, and it doesn't surprise me that he may retire at all, considering he's had a 12-year career. It's amazing.
Yes, it is amazing from where he started to where he would end his NFL career potentially. And it's I said it on Twitter when we aggregated the report that if you're going to find a more professional guy in the NFL, good luck, because Zach Strief is one of the truest of true professionals that we've ever covered and we may ever cover. Told it like it was, whether he played poorly or played well, he told it like it was. Never sugarcoated anything about any subject, to be honest with you, whether good or bad. He always told it like it is, and that's one aspect. And also the fact as a player, he had to bide his time, and he was a backup for a few years behind one of his good friends, John Stinchcomb, and then they released John Stinchcomb, and Zach comes in and takes over for his good friend, and Zach Strief only improved the older he got. A couple of these past years were two of his best years in the league, and not just with my own eyes and your own eyes, Jeff. Pro Football Focus touted him highly in their grading system, and that's something that just doesn't happen. I mean, that's comes with hard work and being a good player.
Well, yeah, typical Northwestern guy, smart, knew exactly what he was, knew his strengths and weaknesses, just very self-aware, and that doesn't happen a lot. Some players think they're better than they are. He always knew exactly who he was, and was very coachable. And you're right, dealing with the media, and I know we used to get grief all the time from our sports editors because we would often quote Zach Strief, but he was so good, you go to him because he understood our jobs, he understood the team's mission, and that's very rare to have somebody that can articulate the team's point of view without trotting out the company line at the same time. He could walk that line of informing the public and the fan base about what's going on, but also not violating the trust of the team, and the coaches trusted him to do that, and that's why he was a team captain, why he was the leader of that offensive line group, and a guy that played as long as he did with his skill set that he had. I mean, he exploited, I think, and maximized every ounce of his ability.
Absolutely. And the way he blocked, it wasn't always this dominating force where he's going to ground and pound someone, and you'd watch him in practice going up against Cam Jordan. That's probably one reason why he got much better as his career progressed, because Cam Jordan got better and he went up against an all-pro player since 2011, and that was right around the time he got the starting job. And you see his technique. It's not pretty. It's basically you push the pass rusher out as far as you can. He may eventually kind of run around you, but that's all he has to do. He's smart enough to know that's what he needs to do, and that gives Drew Brees enough time to unload the football, and he did it, that technique, to perfection.
Yes, and also I think one of the underrated strengths of Zach Strief was his contributions, I think, to the young offensive linemen that came up through the ranks over the years. I know Taron Armstead has talked about that. I mean, he would take these offensive linemen that come along and groom them. Senio Calamete, just go on down the list, and he would bring them under his wing, teach them how to be pros, tell them how things worked in the Saints, organization, and that's invaluable. The coach, he's basically like a coach in that offensive line group, and I can remember distinctly him early on in his starting career giving grief to Jamal Brown. Jamal Brown was an all-pro tackle. I mean, a big-time tackle, first-round draft pick, Outland Trophy winner. But Zach Strief always would hold him accountable because he was a guy that might show up late to a meeting here or there, or, just wasn't always dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And Zach Strief still had the respect of Jamal Brown that he could tell him what to do.
And he was a young pup when Jamal Brown was Pro Bowl level. Down in the depth chart, you're wondering if he's going to make the roster. But I think that just shows you the character of the person, the character of the player. And it's funny, when you have a guy like a go-to guy and someone that players tend to go to, not just media, but players. And when John Stinchcomb was released, you wondered, who's going to be that guy? And Zach Strief took that role over immediately, basically following the footsteps and learning, I bet you, from his good friend John Stinchcomb.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Pass the torch. And they'll miss that part if Zach Strief does indeed retire. But Zach Strief's one of the few Saints that I think he's going to be here. He married a New Orleans girl, or at least Louisiana girl, and they're going to make their home here, I'm pretty sure. So we'll see a lot of Zach Strief. He's got his business here if he does decide to retire. And I expect the organization will do him right and have a press conference if he does, because he deserves it. He's played 12 years here. He's part of that original famed 2006 draft class and has been a leader and also very involved in the community. So if he does, in fact, retire, what a career he's had.
You can imagine a lot of people are going to be tapping him up just because the type of mind he has, obviously, for the game, what he's been able to pass on for others. I mean, that's invaluable knowledge that any number of places would love to just be able to have him for 5 seconds or like 10 minutes, 2 hours.
And I don't know if he wants to go into coaching. I don't see it. I think he might want to get in the business world. That's just me.
I agree.
But Hey, maybe he gets in the media because he's one of the sharpest tacks there are. But you know what? Zach Strief's got a little jerk side to him. You know why? A couple of years ago, the Press Club of New Orleans Awards, he was the MC, and he decided to use me as the butt of a joke. Disaster.
Just one?
Disaster. So
I don't think that's a jerk side. I think that's actually
savvy. I'm surprised he held it to one.
For me, jerk side, man. He gets up there, he says, you know how the media, they'll take things and they'll do snippets. And all of a sudden, conveniently, I'm sure some of the media folks there helped him out with this. They go unearth my bad pass at the Greenbrier football game, puts it up on this gigantic, I don't even know how big the screen is, 50 feet tall for all I know, 30 feet tall. For everyone, my parents are in the office, my brother's getting the Press Club Award scholarship, just totally rips me to shreds in front of everyone. What a jerk. Total jerk. I'm done with him.
Dish it out. You got to take it.
You got to take it, man.
Totally done with Zach Strief.
Got to be able to take it, dude.
I take back everything I have ever said nice about him.
Maybe he can get back in good graces. I know the other night at the Gleason birthday party, he announced they're going to have a Team Gleason like seasonal beer. Maybe we could get back in his good graces with a Duncan Holder line of beer. I guess we might have to wait for that for a while.
Oh boy. Oh man,
we've got to be near the top of the list.
I think you are closer to the top of that list than some random off the street.
I think
so.
You undervalue our poll.
I do, and rightfully so.
You undervalue our poll in this city, and because you promote it so much on NOLA.com, you should know we've got pull. People come in and read it.
That's actually true. Like,
see?
Someone just followed me. Someone just followed us on Twitter being like, I love you guys. Thank you guys so much for talking about NOLA Sports. I'm like, wow, okay.
So last name Holder or last name Duncan?
I meant real people.
Oh, okay. Was it a bot? Was it a Russian bot?
No, it wasn't. It was a real person.
Russian bot is probably
it was a real person.
Nothing wrong with a Russian bot. Hey, you never know. Just don't Western Union them money. Like, I know someone in town that fell for that one time.
Good gosh.
What a surprise.
Well, wait, we talked about Kenny Vaccaro yet?
No, I've been saving.
Oh, okay.
We got this
We got
whole
3
hour to talk
segments,
to
dude.
Saints.
I'm just asking.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to tease this because Josh Katzenstein just sent out an interesting tweet. He just spoke with Sean Payton. So I will bring you this and other fun tidbits.
Tease.
Good conversation, Saints-wise. Coming up next throughout the rest of the show, if you want to get involved in the conversation, 504-260-1280. Or if you want Tulane, Cal State, Fullerton baseball tickets for this weekend, going to be a beautiful weekend. Give us a call. You can get those Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Dave's got them all. So come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. For Dunc and Holder.
I come home one particular evening.
You ever heard of this, Clyde?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I played it at Vic's once.
The only way to make a crawfish bash even
Played it what?
better.
I'm pretty sure I played this at Vic's on the jukebox. Vic's on Chapatulas across from Lucy's.
Spice up your pot a little, do you? Saturday, March
of course,
31st. At
Oh, I'm only
2 p.m. to 6
only
p.m.
do these things in on magazine, the lower up and down. Yeah, of course. Well, you need to come down the road.
Advantage card.
Come chill with us at
Wait, you're
Lucy's.
on Lakeview. I was telling Clyde last night after the UNO game, Brett and I jetted to Lakeview area to get to Harrison's so we could watch the Pelicans game, and everything closed at 9 o'clock.
Everyday essentials.
9.
You get an extra 5% savings
Yes.
every day when you use your
end up
Lowe's
with,
Advantage
Joe.
card. If you don't have one,
Well,
buy
that's where he
today.
wanted to
All
go
projects
after
have
we
a
went to
starting point.
Rizzuto's. We tried to go
Lowe's.
sit at the
Subject
bar
to credit
Rizzuto's. We
approval,
thought
combined
we
with
tried that little area.
Exclusive
None of those
prices,
places
social
open, so I was
retailers
down on Lakeview so much. I'm like, I'm going uptown. He was in the car with me. We got to Cooter Brown
Such a
just in
child.
time to watch the end of the game.
Literally, you could have gone parlays would have been.
This is why Lakeview will never have Jeff Duncan living in it.
This is always open.
Yeah, I don't understand that as a bad. I don't understand that as a bad thing, Jeff.
9 o'clock. You're trying to argue to me?
I'm not trying to argue
that 9 o'clock closing
I just
in a
don't
major metropolitan city.
I just don't understand in a major metropolitan city on the very north end of town. I just don't understand how you can't not think that that area.
I get 9. That's ridiculous. Mayberry RFD.
Look, man, District Donuts tried to get a license to sell beer, and I mean, people just lost it. They lost it because of parking and debauchery, and we don't want that on this side of us. Like,
Alec Baldwin getting
I mean, it'd be a great idea, whatever. So people just said no. So, they're supposed to be building some sports bar off Fleur de Lis on the other side of so that ought to be interesting.
One-on-one with Baldwin about current
Where at?
On the other side of West End, on
Actor Adam Scott will be
on Fleur de
returning
Lis,
for the second
close to
season
the
of Big
canal.
Little Lies.
They're
HBO
building
Fleur de Lis,
Scott
I'm
will return
blanking
to
on
Fleur
it.
Fleur de Lis. So basically, if you're coming down, like you
Ken
get off on West
End.
End.
Nicole
Yeah,
Kidman.
Rizzuto's is
that's
not.
what that is?
Yeah, that's where Rizzuto's
Will be
and the
joined by
barbecue
show
place and
newcomer
stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's an open,
Backyard.
backyard,
Jennifer
yeah.
Bolsoni, NBC
So
News
there's
Radio.
an open lot. They're going to build a sports bar.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Zach Streif has turned my own mother against me. This is insanity. She just texted me about Zach Streif ripping me to shreds in front of all of our peers. It was great, and everybody loved it. Wonderful.
Exactly.
Thanks, Mom. Wow.
Exactly. I love it.
Your sister calls and rips you. My mom texts me, rips me.
Look, when you
That's
make
just where we are.
when you
in
make a
life.
pass like that, you deserve it. I mean,
Yeah, you kind of deserve it at that point. I mean,
you
there's
can't-
no
you just gotta
redeemable
own it.
quality to it.
But you
unfortunately.
own the head shaving thing. You got to own this.
I own the pass. I made me.
believe that just happened.
No kidding. I was literally bent over and sulking, and I made that my avatar for days afterwards. So I own when I'm an idiot. But
Yeah.
come on, Zach. Give me a little help here, a little love. No, Zach just comes out and rips me to shreds. Anyway, I guess me and Zach will be friends one day. Josh Katzenstein with an update, apparently talking with Sean Payton right now at the NFL Combine. Sean Payton said he doesn't foresee talks with Drew Brees being long and drawn out. Brees and Mickey Loomis have already talked, and Loomis is supposed to meet with Tom Condon this week. I'd say that's good news, and going along the lines of a column I wrote earlier the week, the sooner you can get this thing done, the better for everyone involved. Everybody knows that everybody wants to stay married and go on and try to win a Super Bowl. So I'd say that's pretty uplifting news from Sean Payton up in the combine right now.
And he also said that they're hoping to bring back Mike Westhoff, the special teams coordinator. Westhoff apparently just had surgery. And so that's interesting to me. I thought it might be a one and done for Westhoff, but it sounds like he might be back. And it sounds like the entire coaching staff will remain intact, and that's very unusual. Usually you have some kind of defection, promotion, moving, coming or going, and it sounds like this whole staff is staying intact, and that's very, very rare in the NFL.
It's also rare that no one has come after them. I think they need one more year of success before people start trying to pluck Dennis Allen or pluck Aaron Glenn or maybe a Ryan Nielsen, somebody like that, because we saw the improved play on the defensive line. I think you're going to start seeing that. And also, you look at someone like Curtis Johnson. I don't think he's going to be going somewhere unless he somehow gets a head coaching job somewhere. I'm not sure if that's the case. And then I know Pete Carmichael has said, I read somewhere in a report, I forget where he was, that he does strive to be a head coach one day, but doesn't feel like it's the time. And so we'll see what happens there. I don't foresee Pete Carmichael as a head coach. That's just me. Maybe someone else will.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, a lot of people didn't think Doug Peterson would ever be a head coach, and look at him. But you never know. You're right. I'm just surprised there wasn't more interest in some of the Saints coaches as well as they did this year. Usually you have success, and that leads to at least some interviews, people wanting to pick your brain a little bit, see what makes you tick. We didn't see much of that this year other than Dan Campbell, I think.
All right, let's hit the phone lines. 504-260-1280 is the number to get involved. Let's head up to Shreveport, talk with Tony. Hey, Tony, thanks for calling Dunc and Older. What you got?
Hey, guys. Enjoyed the show.
Thanks.
We've identified a number of areas where we can improve on the defense, although it did improve dramatically last season. Athletic linebacker, slot corner, and pass rush. Here are a couple of ideas. Slot corner, insert Aaron Colvin from the Jaguars. Linebacker, how about Preston, what's his last name? Of the Bills. Preston Brown. He's 25 years old. He had like 144 tackles. He can play sideline to sideline. He's a young guy. Also, lastly, pass rush. I know Robert Quinn is under contract, but he's on the books for $10 million with the Rams, and they're needing to sign Aaron Donald in a big way, and he might very well be a cap casualty. I think he had like 9.5 sacks this past season. So those are a couple of ideas that I think might be good fits. Be interested in hearing what you guys have to say about that.
Hey, Tony, appreciate the phone call. Yeah, I think Aaron Colvin would be a good fit because, as I brought up yesterday, Connor Orr from MMQB from Sports Illustrated had an interesting story about how specialized that position is, the nickel cornerback, the slot cornerback, because it's a certain different skill set you've got to have as far as not everybody who plays on the outside can play in that slot. And I think Aaron Colvin could be someone you could look at. I don't know how much he's going to cost. If they went out and got him and passed on maybe someone like Malcolm Butler or Tremaine Johnson, I think that would be fine because you would have that spot. Because you play so much nickel, you wouldn't have to worry about, say, a Kenny Vaccaro, who we're going to talk about here in a second. You wouldn't have to worry about throwing a safety in as your slot guy. You would have a legitimate slot guy. And I'm sure Colvin is probably capable of playing on the outside.
No doubt.
He didn't have to in Jacksonville because when you've got Jalen Ramsey and you got A.J. Boye, you're set on the outside. And then Colvin would be a good addition. I like that thought process.
Yeah, I think the thinking is that he's going to stay in Jacksonville, so I don't know if he'll hit the open market or not, but they're very tight group down there, that Jacksonville secondary. Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Boye that was brought in free agency are the starters. So there's some thought that maybe Colvin will try and hit the market and see if he can get starter money. I think the key there is what would that price tag be. If he's not happy being the third corner in Jacksonville, I don't think he's going to be happy being the third corner in New Orleans. So he's going to want to start, or I think he stays in Jacksonville. That's the way I look at his situation. But I know that I'm pretty sure the Saints were high on him coming out. I think he came out of Oklahoma.
He was injured. He suffered a pretty bad injury in Oklahoma, and so he fell. And I was almost saying in some of those mock drafts that we do each and every year, and we're going to start those up next week here at NOLA.com, the Times Picayune, our Saints mock drafts. I was slotting Aaron Colvin. Oh, take a flyer on him on the 5th round, 6th round, and the Jags smartly took him in the 4th round. Now, if he would sign with the Saints, you got to start him. Come on.
I would think so, yeah.
He's got to be better. Look, I'm not saying Ken Crawley and P.J. Williams need to be off the roster, but Aaron Colvin is an upgrade from those two guys.
And going to Preston Brown, of course, a Louisville product.
Of course.
So of course, I'm going to endorse Preston Brown. But he's one of the leading tacklers in the NFL. He's right. He's 25 years old. Those are the kind of guys I think you want to get in free agency. You want to get these players in their prime. Colvin would be a prime example of that. There's a lot of talk about Preston Brown maybe being the latest Buffalo Bill to go to New England. You know, there's been like a pipeline there of guys that end up in New England after playing against them all those years in Buffalo. I don't know why Buffalo would want Preston Brown to leave. He's the captain of their defense, calls their plays, calls their signals, and is a tackle machine. But I don't know if that's a perfect fit with the Saints just because I think A.J. Klein is the middle linebacker here, and that's what Preston Brown kind of plays.
Yeah, and last year, talking about Robert Quinn, he had kind of a down year the last 2 years, but it was able to jump back. He was also missed half of the seasons. He was hurt in 2015, 2016, only played 8 and 9 games respectively. Last year he played in 15 games, 8.5 sacks. If you want to make a phone call, it's certainly worth making a phone call. Robert Quinn was in that big-time draft class with Cam Jordan.
He's
I don't know how much ammo you got to go get a guy like
he's going to be expensive, but Robert Quinn is a hoss. And I know Sean Payton thinks a lot of Robert Quinn. I think the question is, again, like every one of these free agents we talk about, what's the price tag? What kind of market is he going to set if he gets to it? Because he is a premier pass rusher when healthy, but, man, he's been hurt a lot lately.
Absolutely. All right, let's take one more phone call, and then we'll take a break right here on the show. Dave, who do we have?
Jason in Metairie.
All right, let's go to Metairie and talk with Jason. Hey, Jason, thanks for calling Dunc and Holder. What you got?
Good morning, guys. Real quick, I'm keep reading in the online in the paper about Willie Snead and Brandon Coleman. Who do you see the Saints keeping? Do you think Snead has pretty much lost his confidence? I mean, I know Coleman is a great run blocker. I know that, but you also have guys in the wing like Austin Carr, and you have Durrell. Durrell is still on the roster, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yes.
Okay, I know he's more of a deep threat. I know that, but Snead and Coleman, what do you see the Saints doing with that?
Appreciate the phone call. Why don't we take a break right here on the show and we can jump into that topic. I wrote a column about it last week, and I think it's an interesting conversation that the Saints are having probably internally, and we'll see what happens. So we'll talk about that. Also, our own Josh Katzenstein caught up with Kenny Vaccaro yesterday, going along the assumptions that we have. Kenny Vaccaro told Josh he assumes he's going to be on his way out of town and finding a new team. So we'll talk about that and the restricted free agency debate. We'll talk about that next. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
Where did Preston Brown, we all agree he's awesome?
Oh, yeah.
Choir boy.
Your
Probably be
forecast on
the top
Sports
priority of the
1280,
Saints
New
offseason.
Orleans.
Maybe they draft Lamar Jackson
This
and then
report
get
is brought
Preston
to you
Brown.
by Compassion International.
Yeah, and then why don't we get Bob Petrino to coach the offense?
And, I mean, the Saints needed a tight end. Bring back Ronnie Gent.
Yeah,
Ronnie Gent. In the afternoon at 20%. Now tonight,
hey, I think Gary Barnage is out there.
They got cornerback needs. Bring back Johnny Patrick.
No, he didn't pan out.
No, he didn't pan out.
I thought he was going to be good. He was terrible.
He was and how about some 40s?
He was converted wide receiver.
Friday and Saturday morning, low to mid 50s north and lower 50s south.
Jair Alexander might be on the Duncan's first mock draft.
Oh boy, I can't wait to have to put that on there.
With your Weather Authority forecast.
He's going to be a
Sponsoring
stud.
a child with compassion is the most effective way to end extreme child poverty. Release a child from poverty in Jesus' name. Sponsor a child now at compassion.com/radio.
Kevin Durant dropped 32.
Yeah, when we get to talk about the Shrags
off the Wizards 109-101.
We'll do that in the last
Steph
segment.
Curry added 25 points for the Dubs. Curry saying now that it's March, it's time to
Old
turn up
man
the heat.
symptoms, Jeff?
We have an amazing record.
I'm walking around a
considering
little
how
we've played, and I think we all say we
I've been
haven't
doing
lived
a lot
up
of
to
late,
our own
like
expectations.
Gym.
That's
Man.
okay, and we have an opportunity to
play
build
tennis
the
two
right
nights
habits
ago.
and the right
I'm
momentum going
gonna-
to the playoffs
hopefully
this
I'm
year.
gonna play
Golden
tonight.
State a half
Hopefully it
game
doesn't
behind
rain.
Houston in
Rain
the
us
West
out,
at
but
48-14. Wizards guard John
it's
Wall
like
missed his
40%
14th
Like
straight
if the
game
cold
with a
front
knee
comes
injury.
through, like rain comes in and
76ers
then
bringing back a
shoots out
familiar
fast,
face
but-
for a late season playoff
Oh, we
push.
got a
Phillies
walk
signing
to
forward
full
Ursan Ilyasova after he was
Fun.
released by the Hawks. The NFL Combine continues today in Indy with the first
Here's
on-field
what you
workout
hope.
set
You
for
hope it
tomorrow.
rains so
Steelers
much that
linebacker
soccer
Ryan
fields are
Shazier
too
is
wet and they
announcing
cancel
he's
practice.
officially out
But
for
not
next season.
enough for
Shazier
tennis to be
suffered a
canceled.
spinal cord injury in December
That's terrible.
against the Bengals.
That's terrible.
25-year-old
Just enough so they can't do anything, but just enough so I get some tennis in.
That sounds like some kids would do.
Okay, men, time to be an all-star caregiver.
Want to get just
Bryson.
enough snow to
10
like
seconds.
Be there emotionally and physically.
cancel school,
Don't give
but
up.
not so much.
Don't
that
ever
we
give
can't
up.
drive to go
Caregiving is
sledding
tougher
or-
than tough. Find care guides at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Your home for home team talk. Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Good show as always. If you missed any of it, sports1280.com, NOLA.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube page. And of course, check back later. Clyde always does a great job chopping and slicing and dicing all the fun topics that we talk about at NOLA.com. And I'm telling you, people go check it out. And it's video, written words explaining things.
Written words.
Podcast. It's like any form you want. Clyde throws it all in a post.
There's
Try to give people what they want, man.
Verbs, and some nouns in there.
Adjectives, at least. Lots of adjectives.
Maybe
love
like
adjectives.
a conjunction or two.
One, two. And
Maybe-
some prepositions.
Maybe two.
That Nicholls State education.
Hey, man, got to get it from somewhere.
Exactly.
The champions of the
Southland
Conference
Conference.
champs.
There we go. All right, that's you got another mention in hour number 2, so we can move on now. But let's head back to what the caller was saying, asking about before we went to break, the restricted free agency specifically with Willie Snead and Brandon Coleman. And the argument I laid out, not necessarily an argument, but a debate that the Saints could be having. And Jeff, I know you've been on board saying, look, it doesn't cost you that much. Go ahead and tender them, and the bottom tender would be $1.9 million per player for 1 year. So it's a 1-year deal. But my thought is, if the Saints, and specifically with Willie Snead, if the Saints did not want to use Willie Snead last year, they just didn't want to do it, why would you keep him and pay him triple? Why wouldn't you go out and go get someone else? I just don't. For me, if I'm the Saints, look, I still think Willie Snead's a capable player. I don't know what the hell happened last year. I think the Saints frowned upon him, suspension, hamstring injury, whatever, add it all up, and I think they just frowned upon him and phased him out.
They're ready to move on, is what you're thinking.
And I think if you're going to do that, why would you spend the money? I would spend the money on a guy who you think would come in. Now, Brandon Coleman, do I think he's $1.9 million per a year worthy? No, I don't think that either. And then on the other side, if you're Coleman and Snead, if the Saints say, look, we don't want to tender you, but we'll give you a cheaper deal. If I'm Willie Snead, I'm getting the hell out of Dodge. After what happened last year, no, I'd want to go somewhere else. And maybe Brandon Coleman would stay, but you would think he would want to test the market as well. So I think it's a difficult balancing act here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I go along with Josh Katzenstein's theory, and that is you got good players in the building, you keep them, you don't let them get away. These are guys that I think they've invested a lot of time in developing, especially Brandon Coleman. He's gotten better every year. Now, he's not a starting caliber receiver, I don't think, but he's a useful player for them, made some big plays for them this year. So it just depends on what their plan is, what the Saints' plan is at wide receiver going forward. Are they going to go out and make a run at Jarvis Landry or trade for Jarvis? That's going to affect the rest of the depth chart. Then you're probably right, Larry. I mean, at some point, Mickey Loomis and Jeff Ireland and Sean Payton are looking at a board, a position group board in their meeting rooms, and there's so much money, so much of your cap devoted to the wide receiver position, and you can't start piling up too much money at wide receiver, otherwise you're not going to have money for the other positions. So if they go out and go bold and try and get somebody like Jarvis Landry, then they're probably not going to tender these two guys. And one thing I don't know, this is how far removed I am from my NFL beat work, are those contracts guaranteed? I assume they are. Okay, could you when you tender a guy at 1.9 million?
That's your base. So if you signed him and then you cut him,
well, then what's wrong with that? If you don't want him around, I mean, then you've got him under.
But you don't have the money to spend right now if you want to use it in free agency.
Well, that's okay. They can always. They've shown they can create money.
Well,
they've shown they could in the past.
If you've got $4 million in your back pocket, you don't have to create.
But I do think one thing that is a little bit misinterpreted by fans out there is, the Saints, I think, go into this with around 30-something million. That's not a lot of room. Everybody is like, oh, they've got room now because they've been so cash-strapped. It's not particularly a ton of room. It's better than they've been in the past, but it's not. Once you start adding up and start signing people, and once they sign Breeze, that 30 is going to be eaten up pretty quickly.
Well, the Breeze is the big
it's the biggest thing they're going to have on their roster.
Right, absolutely.
Now but that's why I think, and we've had Mike Triplett on the show before, and he keeps saying over and over that he thinks they're only going to sign a one-year deal. And the one thing that I disagree with him on that is I don't know how they can do it cap-wise. I mean, to me, that's the worst thing they can do. It's all going to be in 1 year cap-wise, so I don't know how they could. I expect they're going to do like a 3-year deal just to make it cap-friendly.
Well, you could call it a 3-year deal, and then you have kind of those ghost years afterwards. You could do it that way. But they've already done that, and they've already got $6 million tied to them this year, $6 million tied to them next year, and another $6 million. You've got $18 million still tied to him.
That's what I'm saying.
And so you can't keep kicking the can down the road, even though they've done that historically and gotten themselves in trouble. But you say that they don't have a ton of cap space. I think people look at it as, look, they'll go sign guys and bring in a bunch of guys if they want to, give them cheap cap numbers this year and move forward. And they at least they've tried to do that in the past, and when they've had to fight to get back under the cap, when they're say like $20 million over, and you're having to roster chop guys like Roman Harper and Will Smith and John Vilma they didn't re-sign, and Jabari Greer. That offseason was insane. That was leading into the 2014 year. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying they're below the league average. I mean, the league average is $37 million available right now. They're at $33.5. So who they're competing against in the open market, some other teams have more money than they do. So I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but that you still got room. They could still manage, and the Saints roster is far more attractive now. So you could get a guy and say, all right, we'll give you a cheap cap number, and then you could still sign if you want to sign a couple of guys to some deals, you can do that even after the Breeze deal
no doubt
gets done. But as far as Kenny Vaccaro, look, as we've been talking about for, I don't know, a year, I'd say, at least longer, that we had question marks that Kenny Vaccaro would be coming back, and we've inferred it basically with informed opinions, I'll just put it to you that way, that Kenny Vaccaro would not be back with the Saints, and Kenny basically confirmed that with our own Josh Katzenstein. He had a chance to catch up with him yesterday, wrote a story, and Kenny Vaccaro is essentially resigned to the fact that he will be hitting the open market. And I've written about it and we've talked about it. I think Kenny owes it to himself to do that because I don't think the Saints are going to maximize any contract. And the Saints, I think a little bit, they've probably soured on him a little bit. We've seen he's given them enough reasons to sour on him. And if Kenny Vaccaro wants to be top market value, I think the Saints are ready to move on, and Kenny seems resigned to that. Here's a quote, in the lead quote in Josh's story. You can go check that out at NOLA.com, saying, quote, "It kind of frustrated me a little at first, but I understand it is what it is." So he says, I love the Saints. Obviously, if it was my choice, you would want to stay with the team you played with your whole career. And so he's assuming he'll be gone.
Yeah, and he's missed 9 games the last 2 years, but for the most part, he's been a pretty durable, available commodity. I mean, 68 games he's played in, he started 67 of them, was pretty much a full-time starter from the get-go, right out of University of Texas. And, Kenny Vaccaro has strengths, and he will be attractive to some teams on the open market. He's versatile. He's a very good tackler, excellent in the box, could be a good blitzer. There's a lot of things you can do with Kenny Vaccaro. He's just not particularly valuable to the Saints right now because they've got Von Bell and Marcus Williams. So he's the third safety, and they showed when Kenny Vaccaro went out last year that they could survive just fine without him. So I think that's what the decision is being made internally.
Guys, I think, and I'd like to hear both your thoughts on it going towards, the back end of the segment, but a lot of things I've seen specifically before we even got this topic was I think that the fans specifically are wondered about the payback, specifically in that, okay, let's say that both Kenny Vaccaro and the Saints are resigned to him not coming back, and he's free to test the open market. What if he goes to a team like, what if he goes to the Panthers? What if he goes to the Falcons? Or what if he goes to another type of common opponent that the Saints will probably see, and then he starts to kind of ball out? What is specifically...
like Malcolm Jenkins?
Yeah, right?
That's the fear. I've already seen those tweets,
right?
Yes.
And that's the thing that I guess,
that's part of the
some
league,
of the fans
though.
would just like, because they were like, okay, well, he maybe has some great tendencies, but if he goes somewhere else and completely explodes, then we're looking at, man, we let another one go. So just a little bit of those lines of what the fans are kind of teetering on the edge of dealing with. Yeah, we probably don't need him because we have young talent, but man, like, you really just don't want him to come back and just have that game against you.
It's always a risk. And look, Ted Ginn Jr. had a monster game against the Panthers this year in the Superdome, came back to haunt the Panthers, but that's part of the league. It goes on all the time. And I think what can't be lost in this Kenny Vaccaro situation is that Dennis Allen was not involved when they drafted Kenny Vaccaro. That was Rob Ryan's defense, and that happens a lot as well. I brought up Akeem Hicks a bunch of times on this show. Akeem Hicks is a very good player, but for whatever reason, the defensive coordinators changed here, the scheme changed, and he wasn't as good a fit here as he was when they drafted him. So just because he goes somewhere else and is more productive doesn't necessarily mean that the team was wrong for letting him go. Doesn't necessarily mean I personally think they should have kept him, but I understand why they didn't. They changed schemes. He's a better fit somewhere else. That happens all the time. And Kenny Vaccaro might get into a defensive scheme that can utilize his talents better than what the Saints have been able to do. That certainly was the case with Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins was a good player. He's always a good player. He wasn't being utilized properly here. And he also went through, I think, 3 different coordinators in his last 3 years. And that doesn't help matters.
No, he went from Greg Williams to Steve Spagnuolo to Rob Ryan.
Yes.
In 1, 2, 3 years, absolutely. But don't discount that the Saints could easily add another veteran safety. Look, Kurt Coleman just went on the market with Carolina.
Yes.
From just asking Sean Payton about defenses and such, he always seemed to have a bit of a respect for Kurt Coleman. And that was a bit of a surprise in Carolina, according to Joe Person, our buddy from the Charlotte Observer. He said when they cut Charles Johnson, that was a given. When they cut Jonathan Stewart, that was a given. But Kurt Coleman was a little bit of a surprise, and Carolina basically stating that maybe they don't think he's that good of a player, but if you're going to go get a Kurt Coleman, maybe you don't break the bank, you don't assume he's a starter, or you play 3 safeties. So just because Kenny leaves doesn't mean they might not address the position. And Raphael Bush is a free agent too. Do they re-sign him? I could see that too. So they've got some work to do behind your young guys. So even though Kenny leaves, someone's going to come in. It might not just be in the same starting role. And like I said, if you get a nickel corner, a slot corner, maybe your defense changes a little bit. So that's the name of the game right now. We're talking about all these players, and that's what the Saints are thinking right now as far as up in Indianapolis as well.
Wasn't Kurt Coleman, refresh my memory because I'm old and decrepit, you young guys here.
I didn't even have to say it.
Well, I know, I'm just taking on that because it's become a narrative. But wasn't Kurt Coleman one of the guys when they played the Panthers this year, the Saints that is, wasn't he like caught in a big play downfield and was my memory is of him either getting burned or getting fooled or trying to save the day on a big play. Am I wrong? Or?
I don't think you're wrong. I don't know exactly the specifics, but I think I do remember that. That may be one of the reasons why Carolina's like, I think we're good. I think we're going to move on. So, but yeah.
I can't remember what play. Did they do like a end around or something? Can't remember what it was. I just remember Kurt Coleman frantically trying to save the day on a big play. Maybe one of our callers or listeners can refresh my memory, but I remember distinctly being in the dome and writing down Kurt Coleman's name.
He might not be the solution, but he's on the market, so we just brought him up, and the Saints are familiar with
Sure.
him, so you never know. So, all right, let's take a break right here. Final break on the show. And when we get back, I can't believe it took us this long for, Jeff, not to tout another Louisvillian who, by someone in the NFL Network's world, has a Louisvillian touted to the Saints in his first round of his mock draft. Lamar Jackson to the Saints? Really?
The internet couldn't handle that.
We'll talk about that
out.
coming up next. Final segment here, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Duncan Holder.
And then there's R, O-R.
I'm looking for Kurt Coleman.
I feel like I remember him, and I've seen him on the bad end of a few plays
Didn't,
lately.
Josh Innes, morning
Junction, that's
Nice.
nice.
Tell me that it almost reaches
Yeah.
Nice. Where did you get that at?
I'm just good.
We know that. I mean, that's unbelievable. Junction, what your
That's
function?
gonna be stuck in your head for the rest of the day.
6 to 10.
It will be. It's hard to get out.
You are
I am a Bill.
Thursday, March 8th from
Yes, I'm only a
the
Bill.
United Way of Southeast Louisiana is holding its 18th annual Got Gumbo Cook-Off at the Royal Sonesta Hotel on Bourbon Street. Come hungry for gumbo and desserts from some of the best restaurants in town. Tickets are only $30 in advance or $35 at the door. All proceeds will benefit the United Way of Southeast
What's that?
Louisiana's Gumbo of Services. That's Thursday, March 8th at the Royal Sonesta Hotel on Bourbon for the United Way of Southeast Louisiana's
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I
18th
gotta
annual
text
Got
him.
Gumbo
I'm trying to
Cook-Off.
get out in time.
I'm Tony Goldwyn. 20 years ago, when my mom had lung cancer, she didn't have many
I guess we
choices.
didn't win it if they haven't told us.
Today, you do.
That's what I was saying.
If you've
Guess
been
neither one of
diagnosed
us
with
won.
lung cancer, please
Clyde, did you win?
standuptocancer.org.
I don't win anything ever, so no.
A new CDC report says 1 in 14 pregnant women smoke.
Yes,
Lisa
I got this
Carter
comment
has
from Mike
more.
Mayock
The
about that.
CDC report says about 7% of women who gave birth in the U.S. in 2016 smoked cigarettes while they were pregnant. The highest rates of pregnant smokers were in West Virginia, Kentucky, Montana,
Great quote here, by
Vermont,
the way.
and Missouri.
Chad
The lowest
sent me.
rates were in California, Utah, Texas, Hawaii, New Jersey, and Nevada.
A Minnesota toddler with a severe water allergy is allergic even to her own tears. Brittany Angerman tells People
Spend
that
your
her
money on what you want
18-month-old
now.
daughter
There ain't no
Ivy
luggage
has a
rack on her
rare
purse.
condition that makes her break
What?
and comes in contact
Bartender,
with water.
where
She
he was
says
at.
when Ivy cries, her face swells up, and even a few raindrops
It's
can
just a
result
quote.
in an
He's,
outbreak.
you know,
For
some
now,
bartender he
her
ran into
only
me.
recommended treatment is antihistamines, which the
I love
baby
it.
takes on her
I love
bath
it.
days.
So-
Health updates.
Totally
Sarah
agree with that.
Kessler, NBC
Walk out
News
tomorrow and the
Radio.
piano could drop on your head. It's good to you have a 401k. How
Join
much does
Relay
that help?
for Life and help us beat our
I agree
biggest
there,
rival,
wife.
cancer. Sign up today at relayforlife.org
And your wife
help us
wins
attack
that,
cancer in our
that
community.
discussion. Yes. The Browns have 111.
Yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here
Duncan
on
Holder now.
Capitol Hill.
Eric Asher
Well,
next
it's
at noon
a
on
long,
Sports
long
1280
journey to
New
the
Orleans.
capital city. It's a long, long wait while
Jeff
I'm
is
sitting
jamming.
in committee, but I know
I love this song.
Yeah, Jeff remembers when he heard this song the first time in the 1920s.
Jab
Turn that-
Thursday for
turn
Clyde.
that mic off over there.
Jab Thursday. I mean, you're ripping a guy who wasn't even on the show. You're ripping Andrew Lopez for.
Love Andrew
else.
though. He knows it's all in good fun. But
All in
I can already imagine him. I can see him sitting at that scores table, like his. I'm pretty sure his Facebook profile or Twitter profile picture still is that Argyle sweater, some blue shirt. Between him and Jarrett, the Argyle boys, the Argyle assassins, I'll call them. Pay me for that too if you use it. But I can see
No
him
one's
in that
paying you for that.
Argyle.
No one.
Argyle sitting there watching girls basketball.
No one's paying you for that.
I don't see why not. I mean, you pay me for little else, so hey,
Thought we were going to talk Louisville.
we are.
See, always reverse it back. Peter Schrager from NFL Network, the only guest in Duncan Holder history to completely stiff us. Just had to throw that out there. Even though I'm friends with the guy, I mean, he totally stiffed us. But Peter Schrager, NFL Network, has his mock draft, and he typically does a really great job with it. Talks to people, you know, scouting and around the league to kind of form his opinion. And he has slated to the New Orleans Saints Lamar Jackson. quarterback, Louisville, and me even giving it any sort of credence on Twitter this morning caused my timeline to explode. People were none too happy, and all I said was, if he is the best player available, you take him. I wasn't endorsing that he was the best player available. I just said, if he's the best player available, you take it. And people
didn't like that.
Blinded. No chance. And what's probably even worse is that in Schrager's mock draft, at 29, he has the Jaguars taking Dallas Goedert, the tight end from South Dakota State. And Darius Geis is at 30, but we already said the Saints aren't taking Darius Geis. But the fact that he passed on the tight end to go with Lamar Jackson, people have essentially lost their minds. Well, at least the people who tweeted me have their brains have exploded.
Yeah, I'm not sure Lamar Jackson's the ideal fit for Sean Payton's offensive system, but I do think he's going to be a very successful NFL player. I mean, he's a dynamic playmaker one way or the other, whether he's quarterback with the ball in his hands. This is what Mike Mayock said about him leading up to the NFL scouting combine. He said, Lamar Jackson is the most electrifying talent in this draft. Every week there's going to be one person in this country more petrified than anyone else, the defensive coordinator of whatever team he plays. And I tend to agree with that. I watched him a lot, obviously, at Louisville. He developed as a quarterback, but I've never seen a player run with the ball the way he does. And so get him the ball in his hands, whatever way you have to do it, but he's going to be a big-time player in the NFL just as a playmaker, just because of his athletic ability and his running ability.
I think, though, maybe it's the player that Saints fans, at least a few people, I'm sure others who aren't on Twitter, I'm sure they're saying, no way, we have bigger needs, this, that, the other. They better get on board with the best player available philosophy. They better get on board fast, because that's the only philosophy they should have going into this draft.
Yes.
There's not a ton of holes. There are holes, but they will be even more centralized as far as what they feel like they absolutely need once you get through free agency. So the fact, and here's the other thing, the fact that you're telling me, well, no, there's going to be so many other players that are better than either Lamar Jackson. I even threw Mason Rudolph in there because maybe he might be a second-round quarterback. There'll be so many players on the board who are better than those guys. It's March 1st. You have no idea. You have no clue. You won't even know until the draft. You'll know at pick 26 who's out there. So I don't want to hear that argument either. Give me a break.
This is the time of year where every rando is a draft expert.
This is true.
It's really ridiculous.
You and me.
These
We're
draft nicks out there
you
that
two
like
specifically
study like the every mock draft and have an opinion and are so convinced of their opinion because they've seen some kind of draft Bible somewhere and they've determined that this player is the one. Look, nobody really knows. Even the Saints don't know. I mean, Sean Payton admitted as much last year about Alvin Kamara. Yeah, they liked him, but they did. If they thought he was going to be what he turned out to be, they would have drafted him higher. So just chill on your proclamations of who's good and who's not.
2 minutes.
Unfortunately, Jeff, Loverboy Love here on the YouTube stream says, if he is the best, trade back, please. Sorry, Jeff Duncan.
I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. I mean, I'm not endorsing them drafting Lamar Jackson.
I'm not either. I think that's what people are mistaking.
No one's endorsing. That's why I'm glad we have this, because literally the title of this post, this is going to be one of the posts today. It's going to be RELAX. Relax. This is not that serious. It's March 1st.
Peter Schrager has been successful in this mock draft because he's got us talking about it.
It's true. But I mean, Lamar Jackson's name. But I mean, we were talking about this before the show even started. We were talking about Lamar Jackson and all the hubbub last week about could he play quarterback at the NFL level, how challenging was Louisville's offense, and then all the socio kind of things that kind of swirl around with quarterbacks, not necessarily like Deshaun Watson, like you were talking about, because Deshaun Watson was going to be a top pick, Larry, regardless, because everybody saw what he did at Clemson against Alabama twice.
Well, I told you how much before the show.
Oh, yeah. Let's just get one thing clear here. I mean, they played a pro-style offense.
Yeah.
Runs an NFL offense.
Absolutely, and there was a lot of talk about like the descriptions of plays that they run at Louisville and how crazy it is that he can absolutely do it. So it's just all those things that swirl around fringe quarterback players like Lamar Jackson, unfortunately.
Well, great show to.
Fringe? What does that mean?
Fringe.
I mean, I think you could probably. I mean, someone could
First
take a
round
flyer
draft
on
pick.
him.
Look, if Danny Etling's the best player on the board at 27, you take Danny Etling. That's just
Stop
what
that.
it is.
You know they don't. You know Saints players do not take LSU players. Stop it.
Miles Brennan's coming out early. If he's the best player on the board, they're going to go get him.
Time to close the show.
Great show today. I want to thank Todd Grappanini, Todd Masson, and Jim Derry. Sports1280.com, NOLA.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube page, and Clyde's breakdowns on NOLA.com. So come on back. Tomorrow, Eric Asher is coming up next. So don't go anywhere here. Sports1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Duncan Holder.
Have you got?
All right, thanks for surviving over there.
Thanks.
Yeah, I know.
Double D.
I'm for just one more show to go.
Thanks,
All right,
Dave.
guys. See you tomorrow.
A delivery program is aimed at those who get packages delivered while they're at work and then come home to find said packages on the back porch or in the bushes. The photo of the object and its location is included in the notice of delivery. The iPhone gets top billing when it comes to smartphone security. Security Lab says Apple took the shortest amount of time to issue a security update. The update's